Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Ooh, a lot of lag. Hey guys, hey Cobweb Cavern, hey Corona Ken. Thanks, Corona. Loud and clear. I heard, I saw an interesting question in Lucas's live stream the other night, and so I thought that that might be a good thing to talk about. A person had written in asking what to do if the tank cycles when your fish are in it. And I've experienced this many times where you, in my case, like I've got an under gravel in the baby rainbow tank, 20 gallon. And the way I set it up, I don't have a real good down tube for the bubbler that goes in the under gravel stand to make the water cycle through it. And sometimes if you're in there mucking around, you knock the air bubbler out of the tube itself. And then when you put it back in, sometimes the tank will cycle again because all that water's suddenly flowing through that gravel again, and it increases the amount of bacterial load, or it increases the amount of bacteria and causes them to bloom again. And it can be a really tricky situation. And what we're talking about when I say cycle is the bacteria bloom in a tank. And it can be a really tricky situation. You know, old school methodology for cycling a tank was to set the tank up, let it run for a couple of days, and then, you know, let everything settle down, and then throw a couple of feeder goldfish in the tank, or cheap tetras. You know, you used live fish to cycle the tank. Well, when that happens, oftentimes when the bacteria finally really blooms and the water gets really cloudy, you'll lose either one or two of those fish. Hey, Jay's Crazy Obsessions, welcome to the stream, man. You can lose those starter fish. In my 110 gallon tank, I set the tank up. I tried to do it fishless cycle. I set it up dry. I had no other tank to get biomedia and squeeze it into. You know, it took 3 months for that tank to even show any sign of beginning to cycle. Now, it's a big tank and there was a lot of substrate. But I finally went ahead and got 2 lemon tetras. I knew that I wanted to use lemon tetras in the tank because they are from the Rio Tapajos. And I put 2 lemon tetras in that tank after about 2 months because I couldn't really wait any longer to start putting fish in. You know, you have a set up tank, you want to put fish in it. So I put 2 lemon tetras in that tank, and it did have a bacteria bloom. You know, the water got all cloudy, or it got a little cloudy in this instance. And I lost one of those lemon tetras, it died, and the other lemon, yes, Jay's Crazy Obsessions. If you don't ask questions, you're just going to have to listen to me ramble on all hour, so please ask questions. One of those lemon tetras is still in the tank. It burned it. It burned its skin. It burned its. I'm assuming that it burned its gills somewhat, but it is still alive and still in that tank. It looks red. Now, if you really watch videos of this tank, and that's the tank in the background here, you'll see that every once in a while you'll see a red lemon tetra, and that is a product of surviving a bacteria bloom in the tank. Okay, let's look at Jay's crazy obsessions. An electric blue acara and molly colonies in a 55 corner tank. Lots of fake plants floating. Fake plants, floating plants, and decor. Will this work? Hey, Ray's Aquarium. Welcome to the stream. Jay, electric blue acara will probably eat baby mollies at every opportunity. They may well. Acaras can be really feisty when they go into breeding mode, so you might end up with a bunch of dead mollies if you have two and they are a pair, the acaras. I would shy away from it. Another thing that I would ask you to do is look very closely at the water parameters for both fish. I think mollies require harder water, or they prefer harder water and some salt, and I don't think that's going to be very copacetic with the electric blue acara. They might survive. It might be possible to do it, and you may make it work, but it may be a lot of work to keep it going, and you may have to do a lot of water changes with. Mollies are one of the few fish that actually do a lot better with a little salt in the water, but I don't think your blue acaras are going to really appreciate salt in their water. I could be completely wrong on this. You know, you might get your blue acaras from a breeder that breeds them in hard water with high TDS, but most of the time they do better with softer water. So my advice to you would be to get online and search really deeply about the requirements for blue acaras and mollies together, and see if you can hit a happy medium somewhere where both those fish would survive. And I'm not a big fan of 55 corners because they have such a low surface area. But if you put enough water flow in there, if you put enough air in there, you can make it work. Okay, Ray's Aquarium says, hi Dwayne, what's your feeling on under gravel filters? I have kept them for years and never had a problem. Today they seem to be out of favor. Can you talk about them again? Okay. I have under gravel filters in 2 of my tanks right now. I came up raising fish in the 70s, and basically before the canister filters were all the rage, under gravel filters were the way that we filtered our tanks. I really like under gravel filters. Hey, Wet Sleeves, welcome to the stream. I think that they are, that they get a bad rap that they don't deserve. They're much cheaper than other kinds of filtration. Hey, Vals, welcome to the stream. A couple of areas where under gravel filters can be problematic are if you've got a 4-inch bed of gravel over top of your under gravel filter, and you have large cichlids in a tank, like a 55 with full under gravel and 4 inches of gravel on top of it, the under gravel filter. if the cichlids dig to the bottom, you know, digging their pits for preparation for breeding, and some cichlids just love to rearrange the whole tank anyway. They'll do it even if they're not breeding. You can have an issue with that under gravel filter being exposed, and the water flow will go down the hole. Hey, Sharon Gregory, welcome to the stream. But it is quite easy to put 2 inches of gravel on top of that under gravel filter, and then an egg crate, a piece of egg crate lighting diffuser, you know, the small plastic squares. If you cut that to fit and put it down on top of that 2 inches of gravel on top of your under gravel filter, and then put 2 inches of gravel on top of that, the cichlids will not be able to dig below that egg crate filter, and you will maintain 2 inches of gravel that does not get disturbed. Even if they move every bit of gravel from one side of the tank to the other, you'll still have 2 inches of gravel that will hold your bacteria just fine, and the cycle will not really change that much. I'm very much a believer in under gravel filters. The one area where under gravel filters have a problem is mulm buildup underneath the under gravel filter, which can cause anaerobic bacteria to start populating really deep in the gravel if your under gravel filter is very deep, or in the mulm underneath the under gravel filter itself. Sorry, guys. To solve that issue, a lot of aquarists, you know, a lot of people run their under gravel filter with air stones, and that works really well. But a lot of people, once power heads came out and started being used a lot of people would put a smaller power head on top of their standpipe. Under gravel filters are basically a plate with lots of holes in it, or lots of slots in it, so that water can flow through even with gravel on top of it. And then it has standpipes in the corners that come up, and you put air stones down in there and pull the water through the plate that way, or you put power heads on them and pull the water much more strongly that way. Well, because under gravel filters have the issue of mulm building up underneath them, a lot of people finally hit on the idea of turning their power heads, where the flow went down the standpipe, and pushed all of the, yeah, Sharon Gregory is just talking about it right now. What about the reverse flow? So you put a power head on the standpipe where the water is pushing back down into the under gravel filter, which pushes all the mulm up out of the gravel if it's not too deep, and it creates oxygenated water all the way through the layer of gravel or what have you on top of the under gravel plate. So there are a lot of ways to use an under gravel filter, and in my experience, they are one of the best methods for filtering a tank. Now, in this new age, we have sponge filters, and I am a huge proponent of sponge filters. Matten filters, and I'm also a huge proponent of Matten filters too, because they work really well. The downside of Matten filters is you got to pull that whole filter out to clean it, and it takes up a chunk of your tank. You know, a certain amount of your tank is blocked off by that. Okay, so Jay's Crazy Obsession said, what would be your suggestion for one electric blue Acara tank mates? B, the tank is an odd dimension. It has 5 sides total. It has 2 big panels joined to a normal 90. The front has 1 flat panel. Okay. Blue Acaras are a smaller cichlid. They're not that large. You could go with any bony plate pleco. They would do just fine with them. Any of the plecos that are sturdy enough to stand up to a smaller cichlid's aggression. You know, they might get beat up every now and then, but they will survive. You could go with smaller plecos, Laura cards. Martin Schultz says, I love your Moses beard, Grandpa. Yeah, I'm a grandpa. Hey, Dank Tanks, welcome to the stream, man. That's a really unique tank layout you've got there, Jay. I would go with your blue Acara and some plecos, or maybe some Corys, maybe some larger Corys that would go be all right in a tank like that. And then I would have some kind of mid-water tetra in the tank with them. In the background, you can see lemon tetras and reed tetras and pencil fish. I would go that direction, but this is your tank. People ask questions about what would you put in, what would you. It's about you. It's your tank, and it's about what you want to see in that tank. You know, I can sit here and tell you that I don't like to mix fish from different areas of the world, you know, like Asian fish and South American fish, or even in some cases Central American fish and South American fish, because they don't speak the same language. When that Central American larger cichlid, like a Jack Dempsey, starts telling that Asian fish that it's in his territory, he does it, or she does it, with a language that is natural to that fish, but it's not natural to that Asian fish to have another fish telling it that way to get out of my territory. So you've got a problem there to begin with. They don't speak the same language. Now, if that Jack Dempsey whacks that Asian fish really hard, then that Asian fish is going to get the idea that I want to get away from this fish. But you're creating stress that doesn't really need to happen in that situation. Martin Schultz is talking about my Moses beard. I'm not sure that it's strictly Moses beard, but it's just really cold here right now, and a really long beard helps keep me warm. Jay's Crazy Obsession says, I want him to live with a Koi, but I don't really have the heart to do that to a Koi. Yeah, that sounds like a worse mix than Molly's. You could go with Endlers. They would probably work well with a, you know, if you strictly want a live bearer, you could go with Endlers. You could go with, I mean, there's lots of live bearers that would probably work. Now, the car is going to kill little fish. So anything that, you know, and I say that like it's a blanket statement, but it's not. Some fish, their personality is completely different from what everyone will tell you. You might get a fish that is so reticent to interact with other fish that it would never dream of hurting or eating another fish. But generally, Acaras, they are going to be opportunistic predators. They will attack what they can find. If you put a bunch of freshwater shrimp in with that fish, he's going to eat them. Eventually, he's going to get around to eating all of them. So, if you notice, there are some teleocyclas in the background video. When I was ordering them from Eric Bodrock, who I got them from, I said, Eric, this tank is a L260 breeding setup, but it's even in a breeding setup, I want a tank I can look at and watch. That feels, I don't want just a bare tank and just that single fish in there. I want something I can watch. So I said, do you think that these teleocyclas will eat my baby plecos if they breed? And he said, Dwayne, big fish eat little fish, and that's basically how it works. If you're going to try to mix a larger fish with a smaller species of fish, 9 times out of 10, those smaller fish are going to get eaten. Okay, so now Jay's Crazy Obsessions is saying, what about a swordtail? I'll keep him well fed and water changes are no issue. Swordtails get a little bigger. They're pretty mean. My experience is that a swordtail's pretty feisty and will kind of stand its ground. So, yeah, I think you're getting closer. So, you're still going to lose babies, and you may need to be ready for a plan B in case that Acara decides it's going to kill every swordtail in the tank, and you need to get them out of there. Anytime you set something up, you should be ready to suddenly take all of one fish out of that tank and have another tank where you could put them in an emergency. And Cobwebs Caverns is saying, Jay, any live bears will just be snacks. And that's probably true. I would come down on the side of saying that's probably true. It can be dependent on what the personality of your blue Acara is. If you set that tank up and put a colony of swordtails in there and have lots of hiding places for them to avoid harm, and leave them in there for a month and then add the blue Acara, the blue Acara is going to say, these guys were here first. It's their area. And so for quite a while, you might get by without any issues at all before the live bear, before the Acara suddenly decides, you know what, I'm a lot bigger than these guys are. I'm going to kill or eat them. So, Okay, so my topic for today is cycling a tank. And cycling a tank is one of the most critical and important things that we do as fish keepers. You can cheat, you can Jay says, yeah, I have a 44 bow I could move the Acara to, but I don't think it will be big enough tank for a forever home. That 44 bow probably has a better surface area to it than the 55. So I might think that the 44 bow would be a better forever home, actually, if you're not going to put a lot of other fish in there. So back to cycling a tank. It's critical that, hey Kyle, welcome to the stream. Kyle may have more personal experience with the cars than I do, Jay. So you might chat with Kyle about it. He might be able to give you better pointers than I can. It's been a long time since I kept in a car. Um, Once again, back to cycling. I think that it is critical as fish keepers that we understand the nitrogen cycle before we attempt to keep fish. I think it's something that you can learn as you go along, but you're likely to lose a lot of fish in the process of not having your tank properly uh, cycled and adding fish and then having a bacteria bloom on you that can kill every fish in the tank. Um, I think that we as fish keepers need to be both aware of and well studied on the information that's out there about cycling tanks and having sudden bacteria blooms in a tank. You can have a fish die and get trapped in the rocks, and you can get a new bacteria bloom. You can have a filter fail and then start back up. You know, when you turn it back on or when you clear the blockage or whatever it is that is causing the filter to be a problem. Um, Kyle says, very true, Dwayne. I'm still learning things about tank cycling. I want to also look into the Pond Guru's method for some box filters. He's really done some interesting trickle filters. I've always wanted to do that because a trickle filter is something that you can set up above a tank. It doesn't take up room under a tank or beside a tank. Um, you can actually like make a shelf above a tank, you know, wall space that's not being used for anything else other than if your lighting is hung and in the way. But you can take a old plastic, or I say old, a new plastic drawer box that they sell at Walmarts and grocery chains and all that stuff, and actually make a really nice trickle filter out of it for what those things are, $10 or $12, that has like 4 3-inch drawers in the box. And by simply pumping water into the top in a method that spreads it out and trickles the water down over the media that's in the first drawer and through that drawer into the second drawer media, and you can still open the drawers out to get to the media to change it if you need to, or to add or to fix something. And then on the bottom drawer it just has an outlet to let the water run back into the tank or whatever you're setting it up for. I think he had one set up on a pond. Kyle says China has been producing some nice trickle filters as well. Pond Guru reviewed it before they cloned it, but yeah, I thought about the shelves too. Yeah, it's a really interesting idea. I noticed that Corey, when he set up that 800-gallon, he set up a shelf above it and put essentially a trickle filter up there as well, just because all it basically takes is a pump to pump the water out of the tank up above. It's just got enough head to pump it up high enough to get it to the trickle filter, and then it just runs back in again. And that's a really Kyle is asking, interested in how well his media removes nitrates. He seems to be really happy with it. I've watched quite a few of Pond Guru's videos, and he seems to be really happy with the media he used. Um, Biofiltration media can come in all forms. You can use the rings, you can use crunched up lava rocks into smaller sizes. Anything that is highly porous, that doesn't break down, that gives the bacteria a lot of surface area to colonize. You know, they use those little plastic tubing, you know, like if you took a straw and cut it up 1,000 times, and those little plastic pieces in the oh, what do they call those filters? Like Joey uses so much, fluidized filter. And the fluidized filter uses the light plastic media, and it works really well. So there's all kinds of different kinds of media that you can use. The main thing with any of those things is that after a while you really need to clean them so that you can get newer bacteria. And when you clean them, you need to clean them in water that's not going to harm the bacteria. So basically, you're just washing off debris and old bacteria and letting the new bacteria take its place. It would also oxygenate the water quite well. A trickle filter could really allow for great oxygenation and degassing of ammonia, and that's very true. He claims his allow for anaerobic bacteria more so than any other, which allows for denitrification. Yeah. The one issue that I have begun to notice more and more, Kyle, with the kinds of filtration that allow a lot of splashing and degassing. One of the things we're all trying to get in our tanks that help our plants grow. So if you've got a heavily planted tank and you use a splashing box trickle filter, you are also going to degas some of the things that your plants need as well. I've noticed reading Diana Wallstead's work that she highly recommends no kind of splashing in the tank at all because it's going to degas things that the plants need to take out of the water. You don't want the filter or filtration to take them. Jay is asking Kyle about this electric blue acara and molly colony again. I think, Kyle, the swordtails and mollies would do great, but where I think he's got an issue is the blue acara is going to eat a lot of fry. Basically, you're putting a blue acara in a tank full of food if you put mollies in there. I mean, some of them are going to survive, but not if you want to keep the colony going by letting them breed. Yeah, Kyle, that's a great book. I mean, a lot of people argue with a lot of her methodology, and a lot of the some of the stuff in that book is a little bit out there on the edge, but I'm still not sure that all of it isn't true because of how well she understands the subject, you know. She's got a lot more experience keeping fish and plants than most of us put together do. All right, so no one's really picked up on my talking about cycling. I think this is an issue, this cycle issue, that really hasn't been studied enough, because we are all at risk of a sudden cycle, a sudden bacteria bloom hitting our tank while while the tank's already been set up and already cycled once. and has lots of fish in it, it's really difficult to know what to do, because you can remove all the fish from the tank if you have another non-stressful place to add them. Um, hey Joel, glass boxes. It's fine to lurk, man. Water changes are always, you will always be doing better to do water changes than sit and watch me. Your fish will appreciate it much more. Cobwebs says, Dwayne, I think cycling is wider known or discussed, but still not fully understood. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about here. When that guy asked that question about what can I do because my tank has cycled suddenly, I felt at a loss for what scientific basis that I could give him an answer that would really help him out. I mean, we all try different things, doing small water changes, because if you have a tank suddenly cycle on you and you do a 90% water change, the water's going to be clear when you get done doing that water change, but then it's just going to bloom back again. So I think you're better off doing small water changes. And what I told him was to use a conditioner that aids in the fish's slime coat so that the fish has a slightly better protection against the activity that's going on in the tank. A sudden bloom can kill every fish in a tank. It can cut down on oxygen. It can create a spike in nitrites or nitrates. It can do all kinds of things in your tank with all of your prized fish in there with it. So setting up a tank and learning the cycle, dealing with a sudden cycle while your fish are in their tank is also difficult. I'm not sure that there is anyone out there. When I started thinking about doing this live stream about this, I thought I might dig out some of the really older books that I have and see what they said about it. I've been busy. By the way, we have a brand new heater and all new. It's a 90% Linux. And what that 90% means is that they don't even use metal exhaust. It's just a PVC exhaust, because it literally uses up all of the heat inside of the heater, and it will literally take the heat coming off of the first process and recycle it through the can again so that more of it gets used to heat the house. It's way more efficient. It was an awful lot of money, but with it being 10 degrees outside and ice and snow everywhere, I'm really glad to have it. Cobweb says, worth mentioning, I think that the filter start or filter boost in a bottle product shouldn't be relied on alone when setting up a tank. That's a great point, Cobwebs. There are some products that are pretty good. I'm reading Kyle's post. There are some products that are good. There are some products that are terrible and snake oil, basically. It depends on the type of bacteria that they use. I can't pull the name off my head right now. I could go grab the I bought a bottle of it myself, but I did research and studied which bacteria really helped, and it's not as good as seeding the tank with a sponge filter from a mature tank, because that's going to have tons of bacteria in it. Bacteria exist in the air, everywhere, all the time, even on the North Pole and all over. there are bacteria. So yeah, I think you're better off using the old school fish method and losing a couple of fish, or using the fishless cycle by adding a little bit of flake food to the tank every day, or by adding pure ammonia to the tank, which will really jump start the cycling process. The bacteria will have a lot of ammonia to work on, and they will really crank up. But I cycled my 110 gallon mini cycled 3 times before I started really adding my fish, and I never got a full bloom. Okay, Kyle is asking me, do you think adding soil samples from different locations to a tank to add new bacteria strains could be beneficial to a tank? In nature, with birds and storms, new bacteria would always be entering. Kyle, if you read deeper into Diana Wallstad's book, she talks about this. I can't remember what it is, but just off the top of my head, I'm going to say that there's like 3,000 types of bacteria that can be found inside of a fish tank, all different types. Or maybe that's 3,000 that can be found in soil. I may be misremembering, so don't take my word on that, look it up. But there are a lot of different types of bacteria, but very few of them can survive underwater, and very few of them are actually beneficial to what the nitrogen cycle in our tanks. So yes, it's possible by going out in your yard and digging, like in your chicken yard, and digging up a little bit of that soil and sprinkling it in your tank on the substrate when you're setting it up, or putting it in a bag and letting it hang in the tank. While chicken poop is probably not the best thing because it's super high in nitrogen. That's basically a fertilizer for a lot of people. You might use it for stick it in the undergravel and use it for plants, but you're running the risk. Hey Susan, welcome to the stream. Cobweb says, seen a few people using a prawn shrimp as a decomposing ammonia source. Yeah, that can work really well. But then you're dealing with a rotted prawn or shrimp too. So, and Kyle is reiterating and saying nitrifying bacteria is found in all soil. Without it, plants could not feed or absorb the nutrients that they need. Yeah. It's risky, Kyle, to add soil from a place that you don't know exactly what might have been leached into it before. I'd almost say that you'd be better off getting some cooked soil that was pristine, and then setting it out in some kind of tray that would allow bacteria to colonize it, and then using that pristine soil with bacteria in it on them, because 50 years ago someone may have been using chloridane on the soil that you're bringing in. So I definitely test that before I used it. I definitely try it out on a cull fish to see if they survive that. But if I remember correctly, and from Diana Wallstad's book, that she didn't really feel like, she did some research on what bacteria were in her dirted tanks when she tried using dirt, and didn't really feel like that it added that much. So I would recommend, Kyle, finish Diana Wallstad's book and look deeper into her findings, and that will probably give you a better idea about that. I could be wrong in my reading of it. I could, she might have said that there were a lot of good things that come out of it, but my impression was that she wasn't really high on the idea of adding strange strains of bacteria from outside into a tank and how worthwhile they could be. Jay says, King of DIY does the prawns. It's just stinky. Yeah, I'm a big fan. If you have any other tanks functioning in your fish room, unless you're just starting a raw tank that from completely dry conditions, I always recommend seeding a tank with a sponge filter. Hey, JP Hoare, welcome to the stream. How do you think that all these guys that bring their fish to shows and set up tanks on the fly, how do you think they manage to cycle those tanks quickly enough to not kill those prize showfish? It's done with seeding tanks with filters from mature tanks, so that suddenly there's a large bunch of bacteria in that tank. It cycles really quickly, and it's over and done with in a matter of a day, and you can actually put fish in that water right away. Hey, Priscilla, welcome to the stream. Okay, one thing I haven't done is my cheating by using a tip from a book, and I've used this 500 Ways to be a Better Freshwater Keeper book for a while now. I wonder if they have. I'm looking in here for a section on what this book might have tips for setting up, dealing with the nitrogen cycle. Their heating and lighting, water management. Okay, tip number 76 in water management is maturing a new biological filter the natural way. No matter what type of filter system you use, it takes time for a new biological filter to build up a stable population of beneficial bacteria, typically 4 to 6 weeks or even more. It is therefore essential to stock the aquarium with fish gradually and allow the bacteria population to increase steadily to cope with their waste. The maturing time can be shortened by adding a small amount of medium from a mature filter, or by squeezing out the dirt from a mature sponge filter onto a new one. This seeds the new filter with essential bacteria. So basically their tip is exactly what we've been talking about. Priscilla, give us a review of what you've thought of the book. I'm glad you bought it, because I think it's worth having and it's not that expensive. But since you bought the book, what have you thought about it? I was pretty nonplussed by that single tip that I just read, because basically that's just what we've told you. That's basically that's the information you're going to find anywhere about cycling. Priscilla hasn't read it yet. Get to work, Priscilla. JP Hoare says getting ready to start a filter, doing just that. And yeah, that's exactly what I would recommend. If you have the benefit of already having a cycled medium, and it can be the gravel on the bottom of your tank, it can be a piece of porous rock. If You've got hang-on back filter with filter medium in it. You can do that. Must be somebody at the door. Rufus is barking like crazy. I would heavily recommend that the easy way to handle doing it is with a sponge filter or medium from another tank. You can just pull a bag of bio rings out of a hang-on back filter or out of a canister and just let it hang in the tank, and it will. Priscilla says, like I got time to read. Yeah, I hear you, Priscilla. Raising a child is more than a full-time job. So take your time, but when you do, I would appreciate a review, what you thought about the book. I've been recommending it, and you know, some people will get a book and not really like it. You know, they don't feel like it did them any good. But I think that's a book that you can keep going back to over and over again. Cobwebs is asking, how are the cats doing? Lizzie, the little black Maine Coon that I've got, she is in misery because of Smokey being in the house. She just say, yes, Rufus, Jay. Rufus is our smaller dog. Rufus! Rufus! You come in here. Rufus! Come in here. You say hello to... Wow, that thing's really hung up on something. You say hello to people. I don't know, it's probably too dark, you can't see. You want to come up here? Come up here. Come up here, they can see you. Rufus is we think he's a Scotty Dachshund mix, but he's been a wonderful dog. That was the one that was barking. Priscilla says I should tell the publisher to give me a share. I'm not interested in that. I'll be happy if they just don't sue me, because it's obviously illegal for me to be using their information on a live stream, disseminating their information that they paid someone to give them. But by the fact that I do not monetize my videos and that I am in no way trying to make a profit from any of these videos, I'll never monetize. Doesn't matter how many subscribers I get. I'm never going to activate the pay me button, because it's not because I have some disdain for that. It's not because I hate people that do that. It's because, to me, this is about fun. This is about helping other people. Yes, I stole this facial hairstyle. This is about camaraderie. This is about the spirit of exchanging knowledge. It has nothing to do with money, and I'm not going to ever make it be about money. Fair usage rules would apply as it's being used in a review setting. Yeah, that's probably true, Cobwebs, but I bet you if they really wanted to sick a lawyer on me, I'd have to cease and desist. My hope is that they sell enough copies of the book from my expounding upon it that it helps them. What? Petey, what's he all worked up about? Goodness gracious. Goodness gracious, Rufus. What is it? Do I need to come look? Okay, guys, we're getting close to the end here, and Rufus has obviously got to have my attention. So I'm going to shut down a little early here. Thank you guys for spending some of your Saturday with me. I hope you're managing to stay warm where you are, and have a good rest of. Yeah, he's worked up about something. I got to go see. My wife may have stepped outside and slipped on the ice. So I'm out of here, guys. Have a good rest of this Saturday.